You're looking for an air compressor that won't quit on you halfway through a job, that stays quiet enough to use in a shared space, and that actually delivers the power you need without draining your wallet on endless accessories. Most of us have been there, spending a weekend wrestling with a tiny tank that pumps out a hiss and then sputters out, or shelling out for a high-capacity unit that turns the garage into a construction site because it's unbearably loud. The decision feels like a gamble. Pick something cheap and you'll be back at the store with a return form. Pick something pricey and you might be overpaying for features you'll never use. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When it comes to industrial-grade compressors, the VEVOR 80-gallon model sits in a sweet spot that many hobbyists and small shop owners overlook. It's built for people who need a steady supply of air for things like automotive tire inflation, occasional spray painting, airbrushing projects, or running pneumatic tools on a regular basis. What makes this category tricky is balancing capacity, noise, and the electrical setup. An 80-gallon tank means you get longer runs between refills, but that also means a bigger footprint and a heavier unit that isn't easy to move around. The fact that this one runs on 3-phase power is a clue that it's really aimed at a workshop that already has that infrastructure, rather than a garage that only has a standard 120-volt outlet. If you've ever tried to paint a piece of furniture with a portable compressor, you know the frustration of the motor cycling on and off because the tank empties too quickly. With an 80-gallon reservoir, the VEVOR can sustain a continuous airflow for a much longer period before the pressure drops. In real terms, that translates to being able to finish a full-size spray paint job on a cabinet without stopping every few minutes to let the compressor catch up. For tire inflation, the larger tank means you can fill a truck's tires and a few bike tires in one go, and the pressure will stay steady, which is something smaller units can't promise. One of the biggest selling points here is the oil-free pump. Traditional oil-lubricated compressors need regular maintenance, changing the oil, cleaning the filters, watching for leaks. An oil-free design eliminates that routine, which is a real time saver for a busy shop. It also means you don't have to worry about oil contaminating your paint or the air you're blowing into food-grade equipment. The downside is that oil-free pumps can run hotter under sustained heavy loads. So if you're planning to run this compressor nonstop for hours on end, say, a full-day auto body paint job, you'll need to keep an eye on the temperature and make sure the ventilation around the unit is adequate. Noise is another practical factor that often gets glossed over in product specs. At 86 decibels, this VEVOR sits on the quieter end of industrial compressors. It's not whisper quiet, but it's far less intrusive than the 100-plus decibel models you'll hear in many garages. In a shared workspace or a small shop where you have to talk to coworkers, that reduction in noise makes a noticeable difference. It also means you can run the compressor while you're doing other tasks like assembling a piece of furniture or working on a bike without the constant high-pitched whine that makes concentration hard. Now, let's talk about who should actually consider buying this. If you already have a 3-phase power supply, or you're willing to have an electrician install one, and you need a compressor that can handle a mix of tire inflation, occasional spray work, and running a few pneumatic tools without constant cycling, this unit is a solid fit. It's also a good choice for small manufacturing setups where the noise level matters, but the workload isn't continuous heavy-duty. On the other hand, if you're a hobbyist who only needs a compressor for occasional nailgun use or occasional car tire inflation, the 80-gallon size and 3-phase requirement might be overkill. A smaller, single-phase unit would be cheaper, easier to move, and would fit in a standard garage outlet without extra wiring. Practical strengths, summed up, are the large tank that cuts down on refill frequency, the oil-free pump that reduces maintenance, and the relatively quiet operation. The unit also feels robust. The metal frame and cast iron pump housing give the impression it will survive the bumps and knocks of a busy shop. The downside is the sheer size and weight. This isn't a portable compressor you can toss into a trunk. You'll need a dedicated spot on the floor, preferably on a concrete slab, and you'll have to plan for the 3-phase hookup, which can add a few $100s to the overall cost if you don't already have the wiring. Another thing to watch out for is the pressure range. The compressor tops out at 145 psi, which is more than enough for most tire inflation jobs and typical spray painting applications. But if you're working with tools that demand higher pressures like certain sandblasters or industrial cleaning equipment, you might find yourself limited.